September the 8th, 2016. Had to do some sweeping and cleaning this morning to get some semblance of order in this madhouse. Our parts are going to start steadily trickling in. We've taken it down as far as we're going to go this year, and of course there is some minor projects yet. These final drives are going to come apart and get new seals and gaskets. They're both weeping. This one's not so bad as the other one. There's a small puddle of oil under that one. It's a good sign that oil's still in them after all these years. They weren't ran dry apparently. And like I said, now we're going to just start focusing on one project at a time, and eventually the entire combine will come together. I have over here, just got from Scorpix, a new set of bars. I would have loved to have had the chrome ones, but they weren't available. Did come with the mounting hardware, and the total was $452. That did include shipping. I think it was $100 to ship them. Came in these nice solid tubes. They definitely weren't light, so I wasn't surprised that shipping was $100. So what I'm going to focus on this morning, it's about 10 o'clock, is mounting these. And instead of balancing it the way they tell you in the book, we are going to have an electric company come out and they can balance on the opposing shaft. We purchased this 550 primarily for the parts. What we're going to do is use these modern style rims with the big 1/2-inch plate. That should eliminate the big cast iron bell housing on our yellow rims because of the way they are dished. And this whole assembly seems to be in better shape than the 510. The dogs on it don't appear to have any wear, and the combine itself only had 2,500 hours on it. However, they were hard hours. There is a lot of breakage, which was always a problem with the 550s. And we will also use this black box assembly for the modern style head and the electronic header control system. These bars are the Calumet type bars, identified with that notch on the leading edge. Those are talked about in the manual, and just for a frame of reference, it's a night and day difference between the new and the old. See how rounded those backs are and how flat these are. And another way to look at it is put a quarter in. You can see most of Washington's head, and there you can completely cover his forehead up. Thought it was interesting, the difference between each one. September 9th, I'm going to install the Wrasse bars. They came with the mounting hardware, and in the book it says that each Wrasse bar should be opposing with the way the serration is installed. So you will put one on this one, then this one. That way the serrations are opposing each other as they are now. It also says to use a torque wrench and use 50 to 55 pounds of torque. I'm going to install them now and then balance the system. Okay, slight hiccup in the plan. I talked to Rodney out there at Scorpix, and he sent me a set of bolts that go to an 850, and they will not fit in the holes of a 510. So that being said, called him up, he took care of everything, and we're just going to mail those back to him, and he's going to mail me the correct bolts. We've got the motor oil drained. I was proceeding to drain the hydraulic oil, and I could not get, for the life of me, the drain plug out of the bottom of this thing. I don't know if it was leaking
back in the day, and they just crank the pee out of it, but I'm gonna have to empty out all the hydraulic oil. I gotta take this top off anyway to change the filter inside of there. But I've got to empty that all out, and I'll have to weld a stud and add some heat to it or something. I mean, it was just tight, tight, tight. Not being able to install our Wrasse bars this morning, I opted to change the fluids. Drained all the oil. There was about 3 gallons on the nose. In the combine, it was a little low. I didn't add any on purpose. And I changed it over to Rotella 1540, and it took 3.5 gallons on the nose to refill the engine. However, I think this may change when we start the engine and it goes into all the ways. Our antifreeze is emptied as well, and now I'm going to take off all of our original radiator hoses that we have coming new, and I cannot refill that until, of course, we get our radiator hoses in. And I still have the hydraulic reservoir removed until we figure out what we need to do with the modern hydraulic system. Went to Kuhn's this morning, Kuhn's Equipment in Arthur, and picked up a bunch of miscellaneous parts that I had on order, and thought, well, it's a nice cool Saturday, I will sit down, change all my straw chopper blades. And upon starting to do that, these are some I had in the parts loft. The 510 at least, can't speak for the other machines, is particular to what kind you get. Kuhn's sent me this style, which is too long, actually rubs the sidewall, when I needed this shorter style. Right there. That's how much shorter it is. That's just a wore out one from this, but anyway, a little frustrating, but these things will happen. It's not like I don't have other things I can work on. Morning, YouTube. William here. It is September the 12th, and this morning I got up early, here at about 7 o'clock, had breakfast, and I'm going to attempt to change all these rubber grommets on the shaker shoe. Did this on the last combine, made the shoe shake straighter, and that's what we're going to attempt to do today. Always, just like I've always said, you can just see how grimy they are on the back side. You can't wash all the angles, but that's what you get on an old combine. Having a little bit of trouble. I added oil to this, and that just made it kind of worse because I can't get any grip on it. I'm going to pull the entire arm off and go over to the vise and press that on with a socket is what I'm going to do. Okay, this is working flawlessly. I kind of hate to beat on a new tool with a hammer, but it's a tool after all. It's meant to be used, and if it breaks, you throw it away and get another one. Just put that on like so. This is a 13/16 socket, Husky brand, and it just taps right on. I have been using oil, and here you can see the old one. It's an original. It's got the red paint on it. I really wouldn't expect anyone to ever change these, but anyway, we like to do every little thing we can. If that were to dry out and crack in the field, you probably wouldn't know about it until you started having some catastrophic failure or breakage in your corners. Here's what you find. I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get this nut to come off of the transmission casing. I kept running this adjustment bolt down, that's 1 1/8 to pull the tranny down, and here's what you find. Well, you want to look at every little aspect and change all you can. That's been loose for who knows how long. See if you can see it moving up and down. Hey, you can't really see it too well, but those bolts are loose, and that's been rubbing on top of that bearing for who knows how long. And I mean, I'm not saying it could happen, but steel on steel gets hot, makes a spark, and before you know it, you've got a combine fire. That was about as hard as humanly possible to get out. I could only get a one click at a time on my ratcheting wrench. But thankfully we caught it right in time. Our holes are not wallered and the paint is not completely rubbed off on the back side. So this wasn't doing it too long. However, our cookie pan under there, this lip does show that it was rubbing right on this bearing lock collar. She's mine now. I got this propped. I can always pry this up to get this one on. But you talk about awkward, yeehaw. All of our shaker shoe grommets have been changed. Anytime I do a repair like this, whether it's a cotter pin or a snap ring, I love to keep these little cheapy sets of cotter pins around, Tool Shed brand. These are like $9 a piece at Rural King or Harbor Freight. And this one came out whole and could have been reused, but on the side there is wear. When you're talking about something that costs you pennies to replace, when an old one is brittle, most of the time breaks, I like to put in a new one. Even if it's a snap ring or a cotter pin, that is the cheapest maintenance you can do on a machine like this. Reinstalled this bearing on the eccentric arm for the shaker shoe, and this housing is way too loose. You don't want a bearing to be doing that. So there's one or two things I can do here. I can either weld an anti-rotation tit on there to go in this groove, or I can try and heat shrink the housing. I'm going to attempt the latter and we'll see if we get any good results. An excellent sign that you are getting shrinkage is when you start to develop these scales on the steel you just heated. See them on the inside as well. Got our Variator cylinder in from Coons Equipment in Arthur, Illinois. I was kind of amazed. This was a common problem for the 510, them snapping off. I was kind of amazed they still had one in stock. It's got several scratches on it. Probably been rolling around on parts shelves ever since these babies were made. Basically I have to switch out my hydraulic fittings and install this jam nut and install this yoke or cylinder end, whatever you want to call it. This connects to the swing arm for the cylinder. Okay, we've got some typical breakage around the Variator mount, and what I'm going to do is grind this out, fill it in the best I can with Miller-Matic 211. It's a welder we just bought. There was a farmer hack repair there, an old stick welder. Trying to get it going, probably in the field. And we like to do things right over here on the Stodden Ranch. So we're going to get that fixed up. Okay, we got excellent penetration, and now I am going to be, they don't look like the prettiest welds, but now I am going to add angle irons to the side to help buttress it. Okay, this side isn't nearly as pretty as the other side. I was kind of getting the welder figured out. This is honestly the first time I've really ran some true beads with it. This side I got figured out. Got some beautiful nice stringers going up and down. Got real hot right there on the crack. Good pin. And in there, it's not the prettiest, but with this kind of angle and not taking the whole combine apart, that will hold. This machine did everything I wanted it to do and more. I was very impressed. I did have it turned way up, trying to get a lot of pin real hot real quick, and it did die on me a few times. Tripped this circuit breaker in the back, but once I got my voltage figured out and let my puddle build up for a while, I got the same amount of heat and pin, and everything worked out great. Another thing to mention on this welder, this is a dual voltage machine, 220 and 110. I have this running on 125 foot of extension cord all the way over to Charlie's lean-to. And once I got it dialed in, even on the 110 side, on its 20% duty cycle, I was able to just run, and got some beautiful welds with it.